In this video, I'm going to talk about affirmations and how they rewire the brain. Now, have you ever driven home and spaced out and not even realized you were driving until you pulled into your own driveway? We've all had that experience, and it can be a little creepy to think that we can be driving a multi-thousand-pound vehicle without even being aware that we're doing it. So it's not that you weren't aware, it's that you weren't consciously aware, because your unconscious mind was operating on autopilot. This is called implicit memory, and it's when memory becomes ingrained, automatic, and habituated. So limiting beliefs operate the same way. They become lodged in our unconscious mind over years of repeated beliefs and thoughts and actions that just ingrain it deeply within us. And so we don't even sometimes realize we have limiting beliefs. And so one popular method of changing limited beliefs is using affirmation statements. The truth is, though, that we're affirming ourselves all the time, whether we realize it or not. And we're doing it through our repeated thoughts, whether they're limiting or they're empowering. And so you are going to believe whatever you tell yourself regularly. So if you tell yourself, I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the time, you're going to find that both of them end up being true. So if you repeat carefully crafted positive affirmation statements regularly, then you will ingrain them into your implicit memory, and it'll work exactly the same way. So the goal is to have these affirmation statements become habituated and then turn into beliefs. Now, this takes time and repetition, especially if your old limiting belief was emotionally charged. So the way that it works, I like to think of it like this. Neurons that fire together wire together. Your habits and your beliefs are wired responses in your brain. And the way that they work is through associations. So a particular person, location, topic, or thing becomes linked to a memory or emotion within your brain. So this is actually happening at a physical level. There's a neuron connection or a wire that exists between this external stimulus or trigger and the way that you think or feel when you are exposed to this. So the stimulus can be either a thought or an experience, and your brain then follows the wire to whatever it's wired to, whether it's emotional state or a specific memory. Now, there's actually a really good reason this is happening, and it's because the brain is efficient. It wants you to be able to quickly interpret and respond when something happens in your environment. Now, the wires that develop are stronger when there's an emotional charge, because your brain is going to connect the emotion you're feeling to whatever it is that's happening around you at the time. So the best example of this that most people can relate to is music. So if you've ever had a song that you listened to perhaps when you broke up with an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, or that you sang at your high school football games, like an anthem of some sort, those songs become deeply ingrained in your unconscious mind. And so if you ever hear them again, it triggers the emotional state that you had at the time when you listened to the song. So sometimes, unfortunately, these links get created to the wrong things. And so you might have had an experience where you're feeling really bad and a certain person happened to be around you at the time. And even though that person didn't cause you to feel bad, your brain might link that person to the feeling. And so sometimes these faulty wires can create problems. And so an example of this is, for instance, if every time you were going to get in trouble with your parents, they said, we need to talk, then in the future, if your partner or spouse or a friend of yours or a teacher or a boss says, we need to talk, you can have an automatic reaction without even realizing it, where it might make you nervous or it might make you angry or defensive, and it can cause problems because you don't even know why you're responding that way. And so practicing affirming positive things is important, but taming negative triggers is too. The key to recognizing negative triggers is to become a student of your own emotions. So especially pay attention to if you're having emotional reaction that doesn't actually fit the situation. For instance, if you drop a spoon on the floor while you're doing dishes and you completely lose your mind, then chances are the emotional reaction has nothing to do with the spoon. There's probably something else going on there. So just having awareness of your emotional state takes away its power. And it gives you an opportunity to then practice new thoughts. If you've created an affirmation for yourself and you become triggered by something that is what you're trying to affirm the opposite of because you're wanting to reprogram that belief, then when the trigger happens and you catch yourself in the act having the reaction, you can then repeat the new affirmation that you've created and to relearn a new pathway. So over time, literally, your brain becomes rewired. The new affirmative positive statement that you're telling yourself becomes your new normal, your new go-to automatic thought. So if you want to kick it up a notch, you can use incantations. Incantations engage your body and your brain at a physical level. And so in most cases, incantations are spoken out loud because this engages your brain in a higher level. The goal with incantations is to take something like an affirmation and to engage your physiology. It's almost like taking affirmations and putting them into motion. It engages more of your brain and it makes it feel more real. So we like to talk about 6 different aspects that create a great affirmation or incantation. So we call them the 6 Ps. The first one is possible. You don't have to believe it 100%, but you have to at least believe it's reasonable, that what it is that you want can happen. The second one is power. So what that means is that whatever it is that you're affirming that you want in your life has to be something within the power of your control. So for example, if you're trying to affirm that it's not going to rain on your wedding day, or you're trying to affirm that your boyfriend's going to stop being critical of you, neither one of those things are within your control. So it doesn't mean that you can't have an affirmation about them. You just need to be mindful of how you're saying it to yourself, because the entire point of an affirmation is to send a message to your own unconscious mind and to put yourself in the right state. And so again, it has to be believable. So instead of trying to affirm that it's not going to rain on your wedding day, you can affirm that you're going to have a fantastic time at your wedding and all of your guests are going to as well, no matter what happens. So you kind of have to let go. You can't control the rain, but you certainly can control how you feel about it. And the same thing goes with the example of the boyfriend being critical. You can't control another person. However, you can control how you respond or how you feel. So instead, you can affirm that I will express myself if I'm feeling criticized. And that is a more realistic type of affirmation. And so the next one is present. You want to word your affirmations or your incantations as if they're happening right now. So one key thing to look out for is to use the word am instead of the word will, because will implies future. So always put it in the present tense. The next one is personal. Use I statements. You want to make sure that you're focused again on what it is that you can or will or are doing and not external circumstances that are outside of your control. The next one is positive. So you always want to make sure you're focusing on what you do want instead of what you don't want. Specifically, you want to try to avoid using words like not or don't, and instead use positive language. So, for example, instead of saying, I want to stop yelling at my kids, you want to say something that's more positively worded, such as, I speak constructively and lovingly to my children. And the last one is passion. It's really important, especially with an incantation, but also for an affirmation, that when you think it or you say it, you feel it emotionally. So you want to use words that are going to stir you. And if you need to, keep saying it over and over and over again and visualize it. And again, using the incantations, moving your body, in a way that represents how you want to feel will help to stimulate that feeling within you. And by doing that and bringing the emotion into it, it's sending signals to your brain that this is in fact how you think and feel and experience life. And so lastly, you need to be consistent. So we recommend repeating affirmations multiple times per day. So you could perhaps post it next to your bed so it's the first thing that you look at in the morning or before you go to bed. You could put it on the mirror in your bathroom where you know you're going to see it every day. You could even set an alarm on your phone to remind you to take 5 minutes to review your affirmations. And we recommend doing this for 30 days. So now that you understand the science behind affirmations and the keys to making them effective, now you have the power to rewire your brain.